Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kilian, and I don't know where Kilian is, but I am a security researcher at Varonis, and I imagine Kilian is probably on vacation enjoying the fact that friends and family are all around. Here, I have a bunch of friends here, and it's been really good. So hopefully everybody else is having a good Thanksgiving or had a good Thanksgiving and is recovering appropriately. Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about this week. I will report back to make sure that Killian's all right, but I'm sure he is. I just assumed that everybody thought that no stream today. But hey, hello to everybody in the stream who did assume we were going to be streaming today. I have a couple of interesting things to talk about. One of them is an extension of what I was talking about last time, which is deep sleep. So I work a lot with microcontrollers, like the one I'm currently holding, and I have recently become interested in making them last for a very long time. So I have put out a temperature sensor that now my record is, I think, like 8 days or so that it's lasted without any sort of intervention. And that's been really cool. So I've learned a lot. And one of the things I recently did was set up an experiment to show off whether or not using deep sleep really helps. So let me see if I can pull it up. Also the chat put me off center. There we go. Hello, everyone in the chat. So if I share, first of all, new tradition for me on Thanksgiving is to get rid of the leftover pumpkins with the leftover fireworks from the 4th of July. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Also, there we go. Here we go. All right, so this is a graph of the battery voltage on two identical batteries running identical programs, except for one thing. The one that is the yellow is using the sleep function, which is a very easy, common function that provides some power savings, but obviously not a ton. Whereas the one that is in green is using the deep sleep function, and it is almost fully shutting itself off except for a little timer and a trigger while it sleeps over a long period of time. So I was able to show that using the same program that reads the battery voltage, wakes up, and reports that over Wi-Fi to Adafruit IO every 30 seconds, that I got 8 hours or so of battery life with the sleep function. And then I got more like 15 or 16 hours of battery life if I were to use the deep sleep function instead. So that's pretty significant. This program obviously was spending a lot of its energy on connecting to Wi-Fi and transmitting. But I still think that it's a pretty clear indicator that deep sleep saves a lot of power. So if you're going to be doing something with microcontrollers and it's going to be, idle a lot, I think I'm gonna do a whole video on this because this is my favorite new, like I guess I'll call it a tool of the week, is the ability to put a microcontroller into deep sleep and then wake it back up to do something. You kind of have to think about it a little bit differently because when it comes out of deep sleep, it wakes all the way up. It starts from scratch. So because of that, you have to write your programs in kind of a particular way to take advantage of that. But the ability to use so little power, like I'm getting now into the weeds of like lowering it even further because there's a number of sources of waste here I could eliminate for the nerds. I am using a LiPo battery charger that provides battery from a 3.3 volt battery, steps it up to 5 volts, sends it over to the microcontroller, steps it down to 3.3 volts, and then plugs it in. So obviously, if I were to just find a way to connect the 3.3 volt battery to the or 3.7 volt battery to the 3.3 volt microcontroller, that actually works, and that would probably save me a good amount of power. So there's ways of trimming down the power even further for nerds and people who care about that. But for anybody who just wants to experience an immediate doubling of their battery potential life, this is a nice little programming tip for anybody curious about microcontrollers. So, all right, that's all I have for deep sleep. I very much like deep sleep now that I've learned it. It's my favorite new like magic trick to make something that should be impossible, like this microcontroller lasting for multiple weeks, doing certain tasks, actually feasible depending on what size battery I have. This was a tiny little, I've been like salvaging e-waste lately and like pulling vape batteries out of single-use vapes because they go in the landfill and like there's so many around, like it's just easy. And one of these tiny little batteries was able to go for 16 hours. reporting every 30 seconds. So if I was to expand that out to every like 5 minutes or so, I think I would see significant battery savings, and I would probably get, I don't know, like a week or so out of this like tiny little like waste battery. So really, really cool if you're looking to do a project that saves a lot of battery. And you know, don't want to go fully into the weeds of like disconnecting all the LEDs that might be turning on and wasting like a tiny bit of voltage. Like it's unnecessary. All right, so good to also see everybody in the chat. I see James in the chat. Good to see you. Yeah, I am pleased to see we've got some people in here that are also recovering from Thanksgiving. So, all right, I want to talk about another tool I find very interesting. And I noticed that this was available not that long ago, and that is the ChatGPT app. That's for one. If you have the ChatGPT app, you've noticed probably that there's a number of features that have rolled out recently, including the ability to upload photos, take pictures, and then get feedback on them live, generate images, and all sorts of other cool stuff. So that's pretty significant. It allows you to do a lot of things, but it also allows you to engage with ChatGPT in a number of different interfaces that they've designed to access ChatGPT 4. And one of them is a voice interface. And I found this today, and I thought it was very interesting. So let me see if I can try using it. I want to show you guys kind of what it looks like. So engaging with ChatGPT 4 via a voice interface means you can do things like ask it to summarize something, and it'll go and it actually has internet access again. They've freed it, so it's able to then go and summarize something. So let's say I'll give it a tricky one, and I think it might fail, but that's the point with live demos. So you have to tap on this headphone. Can you summarize the most popular video on the Null Byte YouTube channel? And then it puts me on hold. So what's interesting is this is like a Skype-like connection where I heard like digital lag, and I realized this is a VoIP service. Like I'm basically on like a Skype call with ChatGPT, which is really weird. I thought it might be running locally or something like that in terms of like doing the voice transcription, sending it over, but it turns out they decided that was too slow. So I'm on like a Skype call now with ChatGPT 4, and it's going to come back and talk to me after it finishes.
I wasn't able to find the specific information about the most popular video on the Null Byte YouTube channel. This task would typically involve accessing the channel directly and sorting the videos by their popularity, number of views, to identify the top one. Unfortunately, I encountered difficulties in accessing detailed channel information or specific video data. To find the most popular video.
Can you summarize the most recent article on Bleeping Computer? Let's see if it can handle that one. It's a little bit more simple. So obviously this is something where a lot of people are saying, yeah, Amazon Alexa would do the same. Yeah, like it's interesting that there's already services out here that do virtually the same thing. And I think what's really going to have to happen is it needs to be able to search intelligently and come back with meaningful results that it's already analyzed in order for this to be useful, at least to me. So let's say I'm doing an OSINT investigation.
The most recent article on Bleeping Computer, published on November 24th, 2023, reports on a critical bug in the OwnCloud file sharing application. OwnCloud has warned of 3 severe security vulnerabilities. One of these vulnerabilities could potentially expose administrator passwords and mail server credentials, posing a significant...
Okay, I kind of think that this thing is now coming for my job a little bit, but just like from a purely technical perspective, I'm interested in a little bit in the choices they've made here. The fact that this is, like I said, kind of like a Skype-like connection where you're just being put on hold while it goes and does research for you and comes back. That's really interesting. To me, this kind of seems like it's nearing the point where it's like a commercial product that a company could plug into their like phone tree system. And if this got just a little bit faster, I feel like, especially if it had access to internal resources or if it was pre-trained a little bit, it could probably handle like phone sales and stuff like that, like relatively easily. It pauses also and has like little like speech imperfections that make it sound more organic. And I think it does that when it's like buffering or there's like an issue with like reading back something. It covers its inability to do something or glitches with vocal imperfections that like normal people have, which is really clever. I haven't heard that really before. So like it speaks strangely sometimes, but the strangely sounds like, you know, when you fail to finish a thought and slur accidentally or you know, like or just like make some sort of like tone that like you don't intend to in the middle of a sentence. Like it's strange, like it sounds odd, but it sounds natural. Like it's a normal thing that people do sometimes. So having it like occasionally do that is kind of convincing. Like I don't know. Yeah, so this new tool makes it so that you can do complex queries, have it get information from the internet, and analyze it for you. So, for example, if I wanted to then transfer that into like a script for a TikTok video, it would be very easy to do that because I can tell it to go find the information itself. Usually, as we saw, there's some constraints with how much work it'll put in, as it couldn't find the most popular null byte YouTube video, but it was able to go and find the most recent news. Summarize it, and then process it further if I wanted to. So that's pretty remarkable to me. It's still interesting. Again, the design choices they made. I imagine that this is for speed, and you will hear distortions, like you're on a bad VoIP call. So that's my kind of take on this new Chat GPT feature that they are rolling out. And if you have the Chat GPT app, they're really talking about it. Like it pops up and tells you how to use it. It even like offers to do a tutorial. So I think that they think that this is like the new way of accessing it. And admittedly, it's pretty neat. It does work pretty well. And now that they have restored internet access, it seems to be a pretty reliable way for a little bit of online research that's then presented to you in an analyzed function. I also tried to get it to indulge in conspiracy theories. So last night, for example, I worked with it and I tried to see how hard I could push it before it's just like, okay, like you're abusing this online search feature. Because if you didn't know, ChatGPT integrated with Bing. And because Microsoft was involved, they really wanted to pair the two products together, and they rolled it out too fast. They ended up scaling it back because people figured out how to mess with it and provide inaccurate results, and they got it to say and do some pretty crazy things. So OpenAI pulled it back, and only recently have they rolled it back out again. And that means that this can do research and connect to the internet, which is, again, pretty wild. So being able to have a conversational relationship with one of these AIs where you're asking it to do something for you, and it's relying on live data to come back and give that back is new. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And I have some more thoughts on it. I think that for like people that don't know how to use this technology very well, it's probably the easiest way to get around some of this like prompt stuff that you have to do in order to get accurate results. But yeah. Sorry, reading through the comments. Yeah. So as some people are saying, like the choice of doing like a VoIP session with like a local instance, they're choosing to do everything kind of there on their end. Microsoft like rushed out this feature really early on, and now that it's been restored, there's a lot of interesting things kind of coming together to make this more of I guess, an applicable tool for cybersecurity professionals and then also for the average person. All right, sorry. It started listening to me again and creeped me out. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some more of the news this week. We've got a lot to go through. One of them that I think is an interesting tool as well is CircuitPython. So CircuitPython is something that I've supported on a lot of the products I've created because it makes the experience of coding with Python super, super simple. And that's gotten even easier because before you had to have like a desktop computer or a laptop in order to connect to your CircuitPython device and program it. I found some very hacky ways of like kind of getting around this. And oh, sorry, I just remembered what I was going to finish with on ChatGPT. I was building up to a story, and I'll mention it very quickly. So Bing pushed this out very quickly. They wanted to have this integrated. They removed it, and then they brought it back. And then last night, I decided to see like what they did about conspiracy theorists, because obviously, if you have this tool that will go and find and analyze information for you, you can just have it go and find information that supports basically any point of view. So it's just like, who owns the Pirate Bay now? And it's just like, I don't know who owns the Pirate Bay. It's like, all right, can you find me information that the NSA owns the Pirate Bay? And it like tried once or twice, but it kept coming back and saying, this is probably a conspiracy theory. This sounds like a conspiracy theory. And that was pretty good. Like it did a pretty good job, because I imagine this could also be pretty destructive if people are in like a bubble and they're using this to just go and find evidence to argue like an insane viewpoint, So anyway, that's what I wanted to finish with. I almost got there and then I lost it for a second. But yes, the ability to use a tool like this and its online access to support basically any viewpoint and like dig through information on the internet to find Yeah, a lot of like really like potentially like sketchy sources that do support something that's not generally seen as a fact. Like that seems like a big issue to me, and I'm really interested to see how they solve that, because some of the searches eventually it just said there have been too many requests in this conversation. You must start a new one, and it like shut down the thread, which was interesting because I actually have never seen that before. So my multiple questions about who owns the Pirate Bay and like asking it to try to find like conspiracy related information about it, it just didn't want to deal with it. So it seems like the way that OpenAI is dealing with conspiracy theory related requests right now is by just like closing the conversation. But it's an interesting question as these tools roll out and become more accessible to more people, especially through the chat interface. We'll see. All right. So yeah, anyway, now you can use your Android device with CircuitPython, which is awesome. So I think that's it for, oh no, there's one more update. I finally have a positive thing to say about Signal again. So some of you might remember how annoyed I was with Signal and them removing SMS support. That means that I now have several people I just never talk to anymore because I have a completely separate app for that nobody else in my life uses. It was a very annoying decision, and I'm still mad about it. However, I do like the fact that they've integrated a face blurring tool, which is not the hardest thing to do, but obviously people who are concerned with privacy, like they would like to use maybe face blurring tools in order to make sure they're not accidentally leaking information about people that they're with. At like a protest or something like that. So this is a great tool to have built into an application so that you're not downloading a third-party thing that could potentially be infected or not effective at actually blurring your identity. There have been several instances of tools being released that de-anonymize certain types of blurs. So you really need to make sure that you're using a high-quality blur, something that actually covers your identity and makes it so you're not, if you're going through the energy of trying to not leak information, you really want to make sure that you're doing it the right way. So I do like that Signal, which is a trusted brand with privacy, is rolling this out in the application. I think that that's a step in the right direction. So if you are looking to share photos and you want to make sure that personal information is blurred out, like if you're taking a picture at DEF CON, for example, this may now be the best way to do that. All right. So this is a pretty wild story. If you haven't read this story, there was a hacker who was a contractor at Marriott, and they got caught stealing information and then under the username Free Radical selling the information online. So he made a certain amount of money doing that. And then when he was caught, he was basically not looking to face the consequences for that and decided to fake his own death. And he did that by hacking into the health department and submitting his own fake death certificate in 2 different states. So this is, if you want to read up on the details of this, I was floored at all the different things this particular hacker, Jesse Kimpf, from Somerset, Kentucky, tried to do in order to get out of trouble, but initially getting into selling Marriott customer data is what got him into trouble, and then not stopping when initially caught is what made things significantly worse. Although I have to say, there is actually a story that tops this one this week. And it's not that one. And it's not that one. And it's not that one. All right. Well, the story that tops that one this week is pause. Okay. Well, I guess I'll get to it at some point. I thought it was queued up. So sorry. A cybersecurity professional actually hacked the hospital that he worked with in order to get them to buy more. But we'll get to that. Because there's more stuff. All right. So this was published by Wired, a secretive White House surveillance program, mostly involving AT&T, that allowed law enforcement entities to warrantly search through phone call information between Americans. So often when I start talking to people and I'm like, hey, do you mind installing Signal for if we're gonna like continue talking a lot? They're like, why? Like, why would I care? Like, it's not information I care about. Well, apparently there was a program that relied on all this information being available to do link analysis. So basically tracking people through their phone calls and figuring out who they associate with, where they are, and drawing inferences about like their patterns of life, who they associate with, all the sort of investigative data that's available now to police without a warrant. So this treasure trove of data was provided by AT&T, who, unlike some of their competitors, retain information for a very long time. And this information then is provided to law enforcement to be able to run these data mining programs on, and it does not require a warrant. So there's a senator in Oregon who was challenging the legality of this program, but obviously it's enjoyed a lot of success with drug trafficking and other sorts of investigative uses of these tools, which makes it so that it's unlikely that law enforcement agencies will want to give them up. But obviously the ability to go through ordinary Americans' phone records without a warrant is a pretty big deal, and a lot of people are upset about it. All right. An observation while I'm talking about ChatGPT 4, this new model rolled out and has been very, very good at programming and some of the other things that the previous models were not so good at, but it is not good at ASCII art. So if you're looking to use AI for making ASCII art, you can cross ChatGPT off the list because it was just terrible. Just not even close. All right, so I saw this news breaking on TikTok, so I'm letting it know here that letting you know that that's where I found it here. But Binance was assigned like a pretty hefty felony plea over their role in money laundering, with themselves being one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. So we've talked often about how cyber criminals are uh, they have a difficult time like getting away with the money that they've stolen. Like they often are able to get a bunch of Bitcoin or other sorts of cryptocurrency, and then they're not able to get it out because the money is under surveillance. So they rely on a number of different things, including Bitcoin tumblers and then cryptocurrency exchanges that don't ask a lot of questions. And obviously, if you're doing that sort of thing, you would fall inside the rules of like the Bank Secrecy Act and some of the other things that allow banks to harvest information to prevent terrorism, money laundering, and other sorts of crimes that they're required to do as like a money processing organization. Binance never registered as one. They knew they were supposed to, and as a result, they never enacted a plan to combat money laundering, which is a legal requirement for any money trading organization. So because they failed to register properly and they failed to have a plan as required, they facilitated a lot of ransomware money from gangs who were extorting victims and then needed a place to either exchange the money or send the money. So because of that, there have been felony indictments against the CEO as well as the company itself. So there are both civil and criminal penalties now against Binance for their role in money laundering as a result of a lot of these ransomware investigations. All right, this is boring. Let's go with some of the more exciting ones. So this is just something that popped up on my feed that I thought was interesting. The U.S. Air Force had a secretive operation to develop technology to help defend Ukrainian power plants this winter. And they recently were able to get that hardware over to the Ukrainian side and get the prototypes not only set up, but also working. So this was interesting because we've been seeing a lot of news out of Ukraine from destructive cyber attacks from Russia trying to destroy infrastructure, especially targeting power. So the fact that the U.S. Air Force worked very closely with, who was it? Cisco, to develop capabilities here was pretty interesting, especially the focus of this. So they were specifically focused, it says in this, on GPS-based clocks used to manage data on power relays across the country. So spoofing GPS information is obviously something that is not that difficult. And if you're able to affect devices by spoofing that data, like GPS-based clocks, which might be critical to some of these operations, you can probably cause pretty widespread and significant disruption. So I don't know if that's exactly the issue, but just the wording of this article made me think that there were some sort of like GPS spoofing-based attacks going on against Ukrainian energy providers that required a custom solution to fix. So interesting. A lot more details here, but most things that are really juicy have been redacted. Apparently, these were brought in by Train and then installed recently, and they have been working. So interesting military cyber operation. This one's depressing. So I don't have a Wall Street Journal Pro venture capital subscription, so I'm not getting all the details on this, but seeing news articles about the ex CEO of the NSO group, a notorious cyber mercenary group that has been implicated in a number of different hackings by organizations with very spotty human rights records, is now apparently making a new startup and has raised $33.6 million, which is a terrible precedent and makes me think that these cyber mercenary groups are going to continue to keep popping up until there's some real penalties against this business model. And this is something that we're going to talk about again further in the episode, as another cyber mercenary group was also in the news. So oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so this is actually a little bit of payback. So a private detective, and honestly, so reading through the different articles this week, private detectives were in the news 2 separate times for hiring hackers to breach targets information. So a lot of the time we've talked about like nation states being the ones who are hiring cyber mercenaries, but there's now been a trickle down effect where these cyber mercenaries are actually becoming so affordable that private investigators who are paid by, like well-funded groups are able to hire them to do significant damage to people's reputations, or to just outright steal passwords, phish people, or deploy malware against them. So one private detective apparently orchestrated a global hacking operation against American climate activists. And what's kind of implied is that it might have been Exxon. So obviously there's this kind of firewall where like a private investigator might have some sort of legal obligation to hide their clients, or maybe that's just their business model. But here, in this case, it looks like somebody engaged this private investigator to hack these climate activists. And then shortly after they were hacked, the information was leaked to the media, and Exxon immediately used these documents in their to like prevail in a number of their lawsuits. So the person who actually did the operation was caught, but refuses to disclose who hired them. So this article kind of definitely makes it look like, the fingers kind of being pointed at Exxon here, but really the trend that's been set is that wealthy individuals can hire private investigators who have links back to these cyber mercenary groups to hack virtually anyone. So if you don't like someone and you have a bunch of money, it seems like there's a very, very lucrative market in employing attackers to go after them if you've got the cash. So this is one of those private investigators that got caught, and he's not giving up the actual client who engaged him to do this. But yeah, kind of, I didn't really know about this business model, honestly. Like, I was aware of the fact that these cyber mercenary groups were increasingly targeting basically anybody that runs afoul of these powerful groups, but just wealthy individuals being able to hire private investigators to kind of get in on the action is kind of something new. All right, so let's now talk about the wildest story of this week. So this is an Indian startup, which is Appen, which is approaching infinity, is I guess why they chose to name it that way. That went on a hacking spree that included working for the Indian government and also for a number of private clients. So this started out as an educational business, but morphed into a hacking unit that was employed by Indian intelligence to spy on Pakistan and China. So this was something that apparently got them the trust and support of the Indian government initially, which transformed them from a business that was overtly an education business into a shadow cybersecurity mercenary group. So what's the problem with creating a cybersecurity mercenary group and giving them virtually unlimited resources? Well, they can work for anybody. So apparently the reason why this group ran afoul of the Indian like hacking groups they were working for was because they were double dealing with various Indian intelligence agencies. So because they had contracts with multiple police and intelligence organizations, they would hack, they would do an operation where they would hack someone, and then they would turn around, and after like giving the information to the group that had paid them, they would then sell that same information to multiple other intelligence agencies. So you ended up with these intelligence agencies breaking into the same suspects' computers and fighting each other effectively. And eventually, that was a giant waste of resources, and they got caught, and they had their contracts canceled. So that caused this group to turn to the private market, and they offered a tool called it's something goofy. My Commando. Yeah, so they created something called My Commando, which is a communication tool where private individuals who want to hack someone can request a target and then get updates on the hacking. So, also goodbye, James. Have a good day. We'll see you later. So this was a system where, oh my gosh, yes, all right, a lady arm wrestling a machine. So this is where you log into My Commando. It shows you your social engineering, like attack queue. You can get reports on the status of your attacks. You can generate like phishing attacks, and you can send a number of spam emails which are designed to compromise people's accounts. After compromising these accounts, a lot of these very wealthy people were targeted, and then had additional requests made by the person who had requested the attack to begin with. So these are actual messages through My Commando that are asking for additional information after initially breaching a target. Which, by the way, all seem demanding and crazy. The amount of ellipses in here from some of these like nefarious characters that are requesting information on just like random citizens is pretty crazy. So these are the responses by hackers that are working for Appen. Update, we got success in this case. We got his password. We upload the screenshot file. Good job. Please send me the password ASAP. Find login credential, email ID, password. There you go. Case completed successfully. So these are real cyber mercenary exchanges with wealthy individuals who are paying to go after some pretty powerful people. So there were heads of state that were targeted by these attacks. And these also ranged all the way down to people's spouses or partners who they suspected of cheating. They would pay these hackers to hack them the same way they were paying for heads of state to be hacked. So this was a pretty intense cyber mercenary group. They had lots of resources. They had lots of also targets as well who were very notable. So what's interesting about this is they have rebranded, and they are now Sun-Kissed Orange Farms or something like this. They've decided that they have they've pushed it a little bit too far. They apparently were implicated in the hacking of Telenor, which is a major telecommunications company headquartered in Norway. And they also targeted a couple like wealthy individuals who had the resources to detect the intrusion and trace it back to them. There was actually an exchange between one of these people and somebody at Appen, where they basically figured out that Appen was responsible for the hack, called them and yelled at them. And so this company got caught multiple times, I guess is the point here. And they persisted in doing it. So yeah, these are more actual messages from wealthy individuals who are hiring these cyber mercenaries with information about the targets, and also advice on how to potentially breach them. So yeah, this is a new marketplace where people who have cybersecurity skills, offensive cybersecurity skills, are basically operating on the gray market by either working with the government to get contracts or otherwise just offering their services for clients who have very little regard for the targets that they are selecting. So a lot of these are unknown, like anonymous requesters who are asking to hack individuals that these people don't know. So this sort of cyber mercenary activity is just disturbing because it means that anybody can be targeted by somebody with enough money if they raise enough of a ruckus, as we saw in the case just before. Pretty interesting report. Again, I don't know why they are now an orange company. However, I suspect that they're probably not selling orange juice, so definitely keep an eye on this mercenary cyber group. All right, so I think that's the wildest story, and we're also we've got like 15 minutes, so we've got a number of other things to go through. Let's see what we can get done. So this is one of the biggest data breaches this year, I believe. 9 million patient files were stolen, and this was another of, I believe this was the Move It data transfer breach. So obviously that happened a while ago, and the whole disclosure process has taken a while to come out. But this data breach is second only in size to the theft of 11 million records by HCA Healthcare earlier this year. So huge healthcare data breach, and likely that this information is going to end up on, well, it looks like it already has ended up on the darknet, but who gets access to it, I guess, is going to be the next phase. All right, so the city of Long Beach has been hacked, according to local media. So it doesn't seem as any critical services are currently down, but the website was down. And so far, the press release from the city has said that a network security incident occurred, which is kind of, to me, sounds like an unexpected encryption event, but I'm only speculating there. So it says that the city is taking systems offline for upwards of several days, although email and phone systems were generally expected to remain available. Emergency 911 calls and calls to the non-emergency city services will also continue to work. The city's website is down. And then apparently they're saying that ultimately the updates will be posted to the city's homepage once available, Facebook, X, and Instagram. So not much other information coming out other than information services in the city of Long Beach being affected to an unknown degree. So this is kind of cool. Typically when companies get hacked, they don't want to talk about it, but CISA worked with Boeing to explain how Lockbit was able to use the Citrix bleed vulnerability to break into their network. It's nothing really crazy new here. This was a known vulnerability, and it was not patched in the system, which seemed to be their part supplier system. And what this attack enabled them to do was to grab a session token without needing multi-factor authentication, a username, or password. So that's obviously a pretty easy way in, and that's how attackers like it. So this report, if you want to read through it, talks about some of the particulars of how the attackers were able to get in, evade detection, and some of it was just being very judicious about where the ransomware was deploying. It would not deploy in environments where there were certain defense tools, and also it was able to use some backup and sync features to propagate itself across the network and into other systems. All right, so we talked a little bit about the Kansas court system last time, and they are confirming data theft and a ransomware demand after the cyber attack. So we knew that basically all of the Kansas judiciary branch was down as of, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. They talked about the security vulnerability. Yeah, it's been a month, actually. The system status is unchanged. The e-court filing is down. Kansas protection order portal down. Kansas district, you get the idea. All these are down. So as a result, it seems like they are maybe in negotiations with the ransomware actor, but the data breach is obviously of great concern, as this is a entire state's judiciary system. There's going to be all sorts of confidential information here that might affect the outcome of lots and lots of criminal proceedings. So the statement has stated, this assault on the Kansas system of justice is evil and criminal. Today, we express our deep sorrow that Kansas will suffer at the hands of these cyber criminals. Looks like dark times over at the Kansas judiciary system. So still going to wait and see what happens here. Nobody has officially claimed responsibility online for this attack. All right, so this was an interesting case of security researchers figuring out how to bypass the Windows Hello sensor on Microsoft, Dell, and Lenovo laptops. So this was able to spoof the correctly authenticated signal, so that I believe if you were able to get someone's fingerprint once, you were able to spoof it repeatedly, because there was a failure to properly connect to and authenticate the hardware reader. So while this function is available, it was not enabled by default in most laptops tested. So while this is a known problem and a solution was developed for it, it just wasn't turned on. So kind of an interesting attack. Obviously, this involves a little bit of trickery, I guess, to get someone's fingerprint in the first place. But if you were able to get someone's fingerprint from from this like spoof sensor, then you could potentially stage a man-in-the-middle attack and basically log in as them and bypass that fingerprint sensor. All right, so WellTalk, which is not related to TikTok, as I found out after some research, is also disclosing a data breach of 8.5 million U.S. patients. This is a interesting case because they provide like online wellness services, which I kind of don't know what that means, but I guess it's like, you know, connected services or like remote patient stuff. But this is continued fallout from the Clop ransomware attack. So this is related to the MoveIt data software that had a vulnerability allowing attackers to connect and execute ransomware and double exploitation attacks. And this is just another incident. People from that are connected to the following healthcare institutions may be impacted. And yeah, this, as we said at the beginning of this, we're going to continue to hear about these Clop or MoveIt ransomware attacks as we go into the next year, because there was just so many victims and so much data exfiltrated that we just haven't heard the last of them yet. All right. Microsoft is also saying that North Korean-based hackers were behind a supply chain attack at Cyberlink. So this supply chain attack was sophisticated. This was a Taiwanese multimedia company that honestly I'd never heard of. But the attackers here Trojanized their installers with a legitimately signed key. So they were able to get this malicious binary up, and it affected more than 100 devices worldwide. So this was a pretty successful attack. And it's a pretty, I guess, like sophisticated and classic example of a watering hole attack. Like one of these companies that is running a very specific type of software or hardware was the actual target here. And then this intermediary company that provides, you know, updates for them was the attack vector. So, you know, like it's interesting to see these reports come out and see how the attacks actually run. But in this case, pretty straightforward attack from the Lazarus hacking group targeting companies that are using hardware that this multimedia software company provides updates for. So if you know about Blender, the 3D rendering project that is open source and freely available, they have been under attack by a distributed denial of service. It says attack in there, but yeah, they've been under a distributed denial of service attack for the last several days, actually since Saturday. They've attempted to move their main website over to Cloudflare to mitigate this, but they have still had a number of problems actually providing services to anybody who wants to download this. As a result, there has been a boom in scam websites trying to get you to download Blender when in fact they are a Trojanized version of the real thing. So be careful out there. There's definitely the ability to end up on a malicious website if you're trying to download Blender due to this attack. Now, whether or not these two things are connected, you know, like it's like in nature, things find balance. Like when you have like a major service that goes offline, like I feel like scammers kind of see their moment and dive in. Although it could be part of a supply chain attack like the one we just talked about. All right, so Windows 10 is going to be getting Copilot. This has originally been included in Windows 11, but is now being expanded to a variety of other markets. So if you're interested in trying out this replacement to a Cortana that basically just has ChatGPT with web access, it sure is free. Of course, you're giving your information to Microsoft, but like, I mean, OpenAI is so heavily funded by Microsoft that you're kind of doing that anyway, just by using ChatGPT. So if you're looking for a free way to use ChatGPT to do everyday things, then this is probably the freest way to do it. So this one's interesting. SiegeSec had breached the U.S. Nuclear Research Lab and stole hundreds of thousands, I believe this said, of records of employees. I did not know that hundreds of thousands of people worked in this particular field, but apparently they do. And that information, including their full names, date of birth, email addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, physical addresses, and employment information has been leaked. So this group appears to be politically motivated and is like a hacktivist group, not a threat actor that is looking for financial gain. So yeah, that's a lot of data that was leaked about the Idaho National Laboratory, which is obviously concerned because of its role in sensitive nuclear research on next generation nuclear power facilities. All right, so Microsoft has also announced an enhanced bug bounty program with a $20,000 reward for information on flaws in Microsoft Defender. They're going big on trying to engage the global security community on getting involved in bug bounties around Microsoft Defender. So if you find problems with it, the rewards are ranging between $500 and $20,000. Obviously, a little bit of a range there. But that definitely puts Microsoft Defender on the radar of ethical hackers who want to get a great reward by giving their best effort at breaking this thing. Because otherwise, of course, these cyber mercenaries become the other people who are looking to buy this sort of information. All right, we got like 5 minutes. I'm racing through them. So AutoZone is a warning of a MOVEit data breach. I told you we weren't done talking about this whole thing. So yes, Clop, MOVEit data, it's exactly the same as every other victim. They follow the same playbook. They just didn't get to AutoZone until now. It's unknown exactly what this information contains, but it looks as though they have now been targeted yes, the data leaked by the cyber criminals is 1.6 gigabytes in files. Oh, there we go. Containing employee names, email addresses, parts supply details, tax information, payroll documents, gross, Oracle database files, data about source production, sales information, more. No customer data appears in leaked files. Okay, so it appears that then the information that was exfiltrated was from an internal system that's like a HR, like employee or part system. So yeah, another victim of the Clop ransomware gang, again related to the MOVEit data breach. All right, so we talked about Looney Tunables a while ago. This is a bug in Linux that allows you to do all sorts of bad things, and you can gain root privileges if you already have local access, which means a lot of these initial access people that are able to get onto the system now have the ability to go even deeper into the system and gain root access, which of course is not good for a defender. So at this point, CISA is done with it. They really want federal agencies to patch this. It has been actively exploited, and there are multiple case studies of this happening. So it is now being mandated that federal agencies need to patch this as soon as possible, as it is actively exploited, and there are several proof of concepts that have been released online since its disclosure in early October. Oh my gosh, it feels so long ago now. All right, so there was some cryptocurrency sketchy stuff going on the Tor network. A number of different Tor nodes were running some weird for-profit stuff that was contributing a significant number of nodes, but also was like a for-profit cryptocurrency kind of thing. So ultimately, the Tor project decided to boot them off the network, and any of these affected devices or affected nodes are now not part of the Tor network. Because these volunteers, are trying to create a free open source resource for people who care about privacy and anonymity, it is not welcome to bring in like a commercial model and start like doing like sketchy stuff. So as a result, the Tor organization took the step of actually removing nodes from its network. So unusual to see this, but if you want to dig into the details, I think there's a bit more that I have time to go into today. I'm going to skip that one because it's just nothing. Here we go. This is the one I was looking for, and I'm so glad I get to see this at the end. All right, so this is a wild story. So chief operating officer of a cybersecurity company went ahead and attacked 2 of the hospitals that his company had contracts with. This person worked for Securalytics, a network security company that provided services to the healthcare industry. The fact that they would hack these 2 hospitals in order to drum up business is pretty crazy, especially with the amount of, I would say, crudeness he went through in doing this attack. So printing a bunch of going to all the printers in the hospital and printing "We own you" in order to convince them that they were vulnerable. This is exactly why I warn people about disclosure. Like, because being able to like frighten someone into being aware of a problem versus like attacking them and then like disabling stuff, That really is the difference. And people often struggle to effectively communicate what they found, or like confine their demonstrations to something that looks harmless but demonstrates the issue. Like it's sensitive for people to be able to figure out like what is too much. I guess I'm mostly talking about the printers thing. Like I know some hackers who would say that, you know, going in and as like the security provider, like printing out "we own you" on every single printer and being like, okay, look, like we just did this as part of a test, but imagine if hackers were to do it. Like everything is too connected. You need to fix your network. Okay, like, but then going and creating publicity about the attack, um, publishing information without authorization to generate business, like in the media, to put like public pressure, uh, and then like promoting the hack by tweeting the names, dates of birth, and sexes of 43 patients whose data had been stolen in the breach. That's really what becomes a little bit more outrageous here. So apparently they got 57 months of probation, mostly because of medical issues that he has that are limiting his sentence to home confinement. But yeah, like the "we own you," I think that that's kind of borderline, and some people might argue about. But then like tweeting the information from a data breach, or like being able to access the personal information of patients and then like sending it out, like that obviously is what gets you 57 months of probation. All right, I think that that's it for the big time serious news, and we're right on the money with time. So I'm gonna call it that for this week. Obviously, a couple new interesting tools. We talked about ChatGPT's new conversational interface and how it's effectively just like a VoIP call, like with like the ChatGPT server. It's a little weird, but I guess if they have their Whisper AI like speech to text model, and then they have like a very fast server, they just figured that the only way to make this at all bearable is to make it as fast as possible and cut out any transcription happening on my side. So the fact that then they've decided on a VoIP call to like have all that happen on their side and get a response as fast as possible is really pushing the limit of what's I guess commercially available for people trying to interface with AI and use it in a conversational fashion. So it's a little slow, but it hides its imperfections well, and I think it's a legitimate threat to like people who do phone sales or who do other sorts of like phone-based customer service. So pretty crazy. Anyway, so that's all we have for this week. I will be back next week with the live Q&A on Wednesday. I will let you guys know where Kilian is. Hopefully he's, like enjoying friends and family. And as always, a shout out to our sponsor, Varonis. They make it possible for me to do this live stream every week. And if you want to show your support, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. They do check to see how many people go each week, and it's nice to let them know that people enjoy the stream. It's a free thing you can do to keep us going and let everyone know you care. All right. Have a good holiday, everyone. I will see you next week. Goodbye.